What's up, guys?
What's up, dude? Drinking all the tea, bro. Holy shit, man. Andrew Yang embarrassed himself in a way that we never, ever, ever could have dreamed of. But before we do, this is the Vanguard podcast. I'm Zach.
Straight up. I'm Gavin. Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome if you're new. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit that like button. We got a lot of great news to go over today. I know we've been absent for the last couple of days, but we're back with an awesome stream for you guys. We have a friend of the show joining us a little bit later as well, so we're super excited for that. But yeah, make sure to stay tuned, guys. We got a lot of good stories to go over. As you saw in the title, we're talking about some more of that TYT drama, some of that Sam Seder versus Steven Crowder insanity. We got New York City mayoral updates for you guys. So lots of good stuff. Like I said, stay tuned, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. And before we get started, I did want to do a big shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much to everyone supporting the show at patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. You can find that link in the description, as well as a PayPal link if you would like to donate to the show, and other information. So check that out. But yeah, big, huge shout out to our patrons. We like to shout them out at the beginning and end of every live stream. So if you want to join our Patreon at the Comrade or Vanguardian level, you'll be shouted out at the beginning and end of every live stream. And if you'd prefer not to be on the board, then obviously you can just message me on Patreon and I won't put you up there. But yeah, we really, really like to shout out our patrons and make sure that they feel loved.
And also, we have some exclusive content up for you guys right now. We did record and release our slightly delayed book club. Gavin and I totally forgot that the other day was Father's Day, which was the day I initially planned to put this out. So we were like, okay, fuck, we got to go actually see our dads and shit. But then we got it recorded. It's up for patrons. I'm really proud of it. I think it's going to be a great series of discussions. We're really digging the book, getting into a lot of nuanced conversation about both the environment required and, the best strategies for, bringing revolutionary energy into actual change, reflecting on some of the great thinkers of the past, challenging some of their assertions. Chris Hedges does it all. He's a very insightful guy. We've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, and that's obviously Chris Hedges' Wages of Rebellion that we're doing that book club over. So if you're a fan of Chris Hedges, I think you'll really enjoy that conversation. It's the first in a series we're doing breaking down this book from Hedges, which, like you mentioned, goes into revolution, a lot of interesting concepts that were really just meaty conversation points. So yeah,
only Chris Hedges will make me want to read Herman Melville's Moby Dick, and he does after the opening chapter of Wages of Rebellion. Gavin and I talk about it, so if you have read Moby Dick or you want to be compelled by it further, look no further than this book club podcast. But all that said, we have a fucking full ass show to get to today.
Yeah, we do. As I mentioned, we're waiting for our special guest to show up, so he'll be here soon. But while we wait, we can always get into some of this, some of the news. Is there anything you want to start with in particular while we're waiting for Manny?
Well, let's just start with a little bit of Yang bashing, we'll stir up a little bit of a ruckus that way. I just need to start talking about this because ever since we were looking at those tweets last night of just everybody one after another, just like hammering Andrew Yang in just the most glorious fashion. This is what happens when you fuck over and try and fake out every single political group. Like Andrew Yang literally made his brand in this mayoral race. I'm going to try and please everybody by not being serious about anything I supposedly stand for. I will, and it's just like, it's proof that what actually is popular with politicians and what even made Andrew Yang popular was his own conviction, the fact that he had a sense of authenticity about him. And as soon as he abandoned that, so the people abandoned his platform. So this is maybe one of the fastest falls from grace that I've seen from a politician.
Yeah, no, exactly. And obviously he was up in the polls by like over 10 percentage points over the nearest competitor previous to this election last night, which he has already conceded. He came in a dismal, distant fourth place. Again, squandering a massive, seemingly insurmountable lead over all the competition. Within a matter of months, this dude completely flamed out. And yeah, like you said, he was really kind of, I guess, trying to please everyone. But it was weird because he seemed to be more intelligent than others in the lead up when he was kind of becoming a known quantity on the left. It seemed like he was pretty smart about like how to come off, how to appeal to the youth or the working class.
In the presidential race, for sure he was. Yeah.
And in some ways he was almost Trumpian, but in a good way, in the sense that he came from outside of the political establishment. He kind of was this interesting new figure, and he made a lot of appeals to populism. And unlike Trump, however, he actually had policy prescriptions a lot of the time to back them up. Interesting ideas like UBI, and even though Andrew Yang has always been on a different page than myself on a lot of issues, you can't deny that he at least had thought through some of these solutions rather than just pointing out the problem and being like, this is going on, vote for me. He actually did propose some interesting ideas, and he was also certainly on the vanguard in certain aspects with certain policies like drug legalization, sex work legalization. It seemed like he was a different kind of Democratic politician. However, pretty much instantly after the mayoral race started, his true colors began to show. And all this kind of support that he had courted from the left by engaging in lefty spaces, going in lefty podcasts, referencing lefty policy positions, popularizing UBI, kind of forging this good relationship with the left. He seemingly threw that out instantly in an attempt to pander to New York City voters who he thought he needed to win over instead, completely dropping the charade of being somebody on the left or somebody with populist ideas.
Yeah, well, I think his first obvious major miscalculation was because there were still so many people forgiving him for stuff way deep into the mayor run where it's like, oh, if you think that all drugs should be legalized, are you going to free all of the nonviolent drug offenders that are in Rikers Island when you become mayor? And then now you're going to try and close it. Yeah. There were never those connecting the dots. So that was like the first strike for a lot of people looking at Andrew Yang. Is it was like, okay, like, he was definitely drinking up a lot of neoliberalism during his time at CNN and afterwards, after his presidential campaign. I think there was definitely a noticeable shift, a noticeable pivot, right, between the kind of charisma and the authenticity and the quick draw responses that he was giving. Even if I disagreed with him, right, like there was probably fucking hours of me just ripping Andrew Yang's ass for shit that I disagree with, but at least he came off as somebody who actually was prescribing solutions, like you said, to problems that he really saw.
Yeah,
this was his take, right? Then it just with the I guess we should probably say it was the circumcision comments that really started to take him downhill, not because he had the circumcision comments. He should have just been like, yeah, I don't fucking believe in circumcision. I think that's wrong. I'm fucking circumcised and I don't really believe in circumcision. I wouldn't do it to my kid. You know what I'm saying?
Digital mutilation.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Whatever, right? Like, I don't want to get into the politics of it. I guess you have the fucking right to do it to your child if you want to. But, I think it's kind of gross. I wouldn't fucking do it to my kid, even though my parents did it to me for no fucking reason. By the way, they're not fucking religious people. Yeah. It's just a societal norm now that you fucking mutilate your child. Anyway, like I said, it's not a hill I'll die on, but yeah, I thought that he should have just stood by his claim, because I think most people will be like, yeah, that's a fucking reasonable position if you're not like extremely like entrenched in whatever religious reason people have for cutting off your fucking dick skin. But then he's like freaking out because he's like, oh no, like so there's a large Jewish population in New York, and I believe it's Jewish people that, but it's not just Jewish people that circumcise their children, right? Like we just gave the example. I was born in fucking Kansas City, Missouri, to two white as fuck people who have absolutely no tethers to any kind of meaningful religion at any joint, or like like they're not Christian, they're not fucking Jewish, they're not Muslim, they're nothing. They're just like fucking regular secular people for the most part, and that still happens. So it's almost like, it almost felt like weird that he was so concerned about that.
Out and immediately,
and then he starts pandering in the most like obvious, gross way, because it works on two folds. One, the left is going to abandon you as soon as you start trying to simp for Israel and the atrocities that they're committing on the Palestinians. But then it also, I imagine, if you're a fucking Jewish person and you're just getting simped to like this, and their like assumption is that you support this horror because of your fucking religion and your cultural identity or whatever, that you've somehow simped for this foreign fucking government, like that's also offensive. And I feel like that just causes people to flee 100%. You from both camps.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, I did want to shout out Content Consumer. Thanks so much for that super chat. Really appreciate it. And we're actually going to be getting to this story later in the show. This is an awesome, really inspiring story, frankly. Some good news that we need. So yeah, we'll be getting to that later. Thanks for the donation, though. Really genuinely appreciate it. Does look like our special guest has arrived, Mr. Manny Brown. So we'll let him introduce himself real quick before we continue to react to this New York City mayoral primary. We can't wait to get his opinion. And we also have some more news footage to show you as well. But what's up, Manny? How's it going?
What's up, guys? Sorry for being late.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, no worries. We're just rolling.
Technical difficulties on my end, but I appreciate it.
Let everyone
we're
know
no strangers to technical difficulties.
Yeah, man, and let everyone know what's up with your shows, your podcast that you're doing. Who are you? Introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. Well, for the folks that have not seen me on here before, this is my actual third time on the show, so I feel honored to be back with you guys, of course. But for the folks that have just listened to me for the first time, my name is Manny Brown. I'm the host of Any Given Sunday. It's a really cool podcast that I host along with my co-host Josh Rodriguez. Shout out to Josh. It's sports, politics. It's a weird mix, but we make it work, and we've been getting a lot of good reviews about it. So
a lot of people really fuck with the sports and the sports and politics lane, man. That's a lot more people than you would realize. A lot more people than I realized.
Well, you know, they always say sports and politics shouldn't mix, but everything about sports has everything to do with politics and vice versa. So it's like it's a weird mix, man. But we make it work. So it's a really dope podcast.
I don't know if you saw the
episode. Check it out.
I don't know if you saw the episode, Manny, but we actually recently interviewed Dave Zirin from The Nation, who hosts the Edge of Sports podcast. We talked to him a bit about Muhammad Ali and other lefty sports issues in the past and present. That was an awesome interview. Well, yeah, that was just an example of a great conversation that was had really at the intersection of politics and sports. And obviously, when you come on, we do the same a lot. So there's no reason why the two can't intersect. Every once in a while, it's perfectly awesome.
Also, so many people fucking love sports, so it's a great way to start having these conversations with something that people are already interested in, right? Like, you know, it's like a lot of people aren't going to be interested in maybe engaging in like a text of critical race theory, but you bring up Colin Kaepernick, people have an opinion, and you can start meeting people where they are and start changing some minds or just feeling people out. You know what I mean?
This is a great point too, Rory. Hunter S. Thompson, one of our formative influences here at the Vanguard. He himself had a sports column and was a huge football fan, like a fucking rabid football fan. Exactly.
Well, it's amazing how you can actually like sports and politics at the same time. Like it's weird. It's just like this rule that you like either you're into politics, you're not into sports, or sports, you're not into politics. It's like no, they intersect all the time. So it's very funny when that gets thrown out there. I think there was just a generation of people that just always felt like, oh, you should leave sports out of, or you should leave politics out of sports. And it's like no, everything having to do with sports is but like literally everything having to do with sports has some elements of politics in it. So it's just hilarious. I mean, the fact that they play the national anthem in front of before games it's
we all pray to the flag before we fucking watch our sports. Yeah, but that's something that I wanted to ask you about. Manny, do you think that happened as a part, like a push by the ownership of these sports teams, or you know, do you think that was like supposedly like a market decision that they were trying to like make it as apolitical as possible for like market share? Why do you think they went in that direction with like, because it seems like sports and like rabid jingoism do kind of go together, right? There's you know, they always are trying to get you to celebrate the war that we're in when you're over there, or you know, like not challenge any kind of authority, or like why are we over here doing these things, or like why are we like, you know, doing this? And you know, they'll be like, we need to bow our heads for these people who have died. It's like, wait, why did we send them to get fucking killed in the first place? That's never mentioned. There's no discussion of that. You know what I mean?
Never. Yeah, we love the soldiers, but we never ask the questions, why are they going overseas to fight wars, meaningless wars at that? You know what? You know, we love soldiers, but why are a third of veterans, you know, homeless or on disability for, you know, a myriad of other issues? You know what I mean? So it's like it's a weird dichotomy. It's a weird fetishization that we have in this country with, you know, wars and veterans, but we don't actually look at ourselves in the mirror and see how we actually treat veterans. But to your first point, I think it is an element of control. I think there was a decision made that we don't want our athletes being political activists, right? Because then that actually demolishes the level of control that these owners in these organizations, because these are billion-dollar organizations, right? Like, you know, this is, I mean, you know, I'll take the Phoenix Suns, who are playing right now in the Western Conference Finals in basketball, right? That's $1 billion organization.
Yeah, I don't think you can buy a hockey team for less than $1 billion.
No, you can't buy any sports team for less than $1 billion right now. You know what I mean? It's like, so these are $1 billion entities, right? So you don't want, you know, let's say Zach, you're a star player on a team. Like, I don't want Zach out here, you know, spewing out leftist progressive politics. I don't want Gavin out here spewing some right-wing political politics.
Luckily, I would never succeed in sports, but
but the point is like, you know, it's an element of control that they want to have over their, you know, their athletes or assets. So it's, of course, it's a little less. And there's also that perception of, you know, the less political or apolitical you are, the more you appeal to the masses. And to a sense, I guess that's true. But, you know,
that's the Republican buy sneakers argument.
Right. And to an element that is actually true, right? But I think that to live in this fantasy land that no one doesn't have a political instinct about them, or that no one has any opinion on any political issues going on in the world is a completely ignorant way of thinking, I think.
100%. Well, Manny, last time you were on the podcast, we actually talked a little bit about Andrew Yang, and we were actually just discussing Mr. Yang and the New York mayoral race before you hopped on. And as I recall, we were actually kind of on the same page at the point where we were a little bit cautiously optimistic about Andrew Yang. And I'm wondering if your opinion has changed at all in light of his New York mayoral campaign and the results we're now seeing. Before I get your opinion, I wanted to quickly play this news segment from out of New York City.
It's tonight.
Scott Stringer and Dianne Morales addressed supporters just a short time ago.
We altered the discourse and the policies of so many other candidates in this race to be more inclusive and reflective of the very communities that have been at the heart of this campaign.
This was a very tough election for me and my family, but it was a very inspirational one as well. I really believe in New York, and I believe in the possibilities.
All right, and also just moments ago, this information just coming in, Andrew Yang conceded the primary election. News 4, Shecky Beckford live at his Hell's Kitchen headquarters. Shecky, how's it going?
Well, Natalie, you can likely hear the music thumping behind me, and you can see the crowd here still behind me, the party going on, even though much more solemn. On a much more solemn note than it started earlier, Andrew Yang walking away from the podium a short while ago to cheers and also to hugs from supporters after he conceded, saying simply he's a numbers guy and he has to go by the numbers. And he says the numbers will not make him the Democratic primary winner tonight or even in a few weeks. He thanked his wife. He thanked his supporters. He says the campaign was amazing, that he learned so much about the city, says that he had more individual donors than any other campaign in history, talked about anti-Asian hate and how that played a role in his campaign and actually working with competitor Catherine Garcia, and that he would do that all over again because he does believe that she should be the next mayor. But he also says that whoever the next mayor will be, that he's going to get behind that person, that the city deserves it. Take a listen.
I am not going to be the next mayor of New York City based upon the numbers that have come in tonight. I am conceding this race, though we're not sure ultimately who the next mayor is going to be, but whoever that person is, I will be very happy to work with them to help improve the lives of the 8.3 million people who live in our great city. And I would urge everyone here to do the same.
Look at his face.
Yeah, and I wanted to remind everybody that he literally essentially turned down a role in the Biden administration to do this. So that makes it even more embarrassing. But I don't want to be too hard on the guy. He did essentially lose to a fascist, a former cop that's even worse than he is. So, you know, as much as it is funny to laugh at Andrew Yang for miserably failing in this, just like he did with his presidential campaign, it is bitter, I guess, bittersweet because again, Eric Adams, the likely winner, is no, you know, solid replacement or whatever.
Yeah, no,
he's no ally to progressives.
Go ahead, Manny.
Yeah. No, I was saying he's no ally to progressives. So yeah, it's definitely bittersweet that we're gonna have
he's probably the last choice that I would have fucking gone with out of any of these people, right? And he's the winner. And I think that there's a couple of things, because I think that Yang, just to go back to his dropping out so early, there were a couple of people in the comment section asking why he did that. And I would say that my best guess is that he wants to put this behind him as quickly as possible. He wants to get out of the fucking thing, pretend he never ran, get on to his next thing while they're still tabulating, while there's still a bunch of other people going on camera, like Maya Wiley being like, I can still win this. Mama. Like, he does not want any Andrew. But it's that's fucking funny. Also, the one that Andrew Yang was the first person to get ratioed in real life was another hilarious tweet that somebody saw. So it's like all this shit is really funny, and it's like there was another one we put up for a second. It was like, say what you will about Andrew Yang, but he has a massive talent. Oh yeah, dude is very good at getting a ton of media coverage and then coming absolutely nowhere close to winning. Like, this is like, I mean, the amount of ways that you can like roast this guy is never ending. But the one thing I did want to ask both of you guys about, as a little bit of like self-reflection for the left, we all of us were basically like, oh, it makes sense. Or, I mean, maybe we didn't say it makes sense, but we all kind of understood the rationale of, you know, the DSA kind of took a back seat in this race. They did not run a candidate. They focused on mutual aid efforts because they thought that all of the attention was going to be swallowed. All the vote, like it was going to be a shoe-in for Andrew Yang. Admittedly, I thought it was going to be a shoe-in for Andrew Yang at one point. The polling dramatically suggested that after the Joe Biden presidential election, where name recognition alone just got him straight into the fucking White House. I mean, I was on here being like, oh, you know, Diane Morales, who turned out to have her own fucking problems, would have been a great option, but I always thought Andrew Yang was going to get it done. And now in hindsight, I'm looking and saying this guy pulled in 11% of the vote, probably more when you count how many people listed him second and third and whatnot. He'll do better, but he just won't be mayor. It won't be quite as fucking embarrassing, because I do imagine a lot of his support was really soft, that he ended up showing on a lot of ballots as second or third choice. But I kind of got
no, you're good. You're good. No, everything that you were saying, you're spot on. In a way, I'm kind of shocked that Andrew Yang is not at least in the running or in the contention for being the next mayor. But in a way, I'm not, just because if you look at all the actions and the events that led to where we're at today, he did it to himself, man. This guy is his own worst enemy in a lot of ways, because, you know, the thing with Andrew Yang is that I think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, or he thinks he's smarter than what he really actually is. And that's kind of his own downfall in a lot of ways, because this is a guy that I think, had he just kept his mouth shut on certain issues or not said just terrible things, he'd probably be in the running to be mayor right now. And he just couldn't help himself, right? He has this like identity crisis, right? Because he's got some progressive sensibilities, but then he's also trying to appeal to this like majority base normie Democrat wing of the party, and it's like he's kind of constantly hovering between, you know, trying to appeal to the left, but also trying to appeal to the center left on so many things.
What made it really weird was that his biggest competition and the likely winner of this race is Eric Adams, who, like I mentioned, is a former cop and basically like a blatant fascist. But it really did create an interesting conundrum for Andrew Yang, because obviously he's running against this guy who is trying to outdo him on like, I'm tough on crime, and he's trying to paint Andrew Yang as this like weak loser who's going to let, you know, crime overtake the city and all that stuff. What, in your opinion, do you think Andrew Yang should have responded with? Because I thought it was pretty pathetic how he immediately, you know, started trying to play on those terms. I'm going to insult the homeless. I'm going to insult the mentally ill. I'm going to go out here and try to talk about how pro-cop I am and how much we need to increase security and yada, yada, yada. So I thought that was disgusting that he immediately just started to try to out-fascist the fascists. But how do you think he should have responded? What would have been the appropriate tenor to strike in this race?
Well, there's two things to this, right? Because like, as a fellow New Yorker, right? A lifelong New Yorker, grew up there, so I'm a little bit clued into the politics of the city, right? And anybody who's from New York or knows anything about New York knows that the police union is very powerful in New York. Like it is, I mean, police unions everywhere are powerful, but in New York City especially, that police union is ironclad. Like they are impenetrable, right? So there is an element where you do have to somewhat, and I say that cautiously, somewhat try to appeal to the police, but not at the risk of losing yourself and losing the messaging that works so well for you in your primary run for president, right? Like where he should have been the whole time is, look, I'm a guy who has a lot of money and I can identify what are the issues that are plaguing this country, specifically this city, right? We need to get back to our roots. We need to get back to a populist, progressive way of thinking and way of governing this city, right? Like the Michael Bloomberg, the Rudy Giuliani era of politics have not worked. They've left us in the situation that we're currently in, right? And COVID has just shined the light on that. And I think that he needed to go, you know, basically, this is what we got to do. Lean heavy on UBI, lean heavy on progressive values, lean heavy on defunding the police, or at the you don't want to call it defunding the police, reallocating the police, reorganizing, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah, I think it would have been effective for him to run specifically against broken windows policing and to really hammer in that he was running against broken windows policing because of the history that it has in New York. He's running against things like stop and frisk. He's running against things like that. And that way he can still talk out of the other side of his mouth as a neoliberal and be like, I want us to spend more time solving murders, solving financial crimes on Wall Street, solving, other kinds of crimes, and not harassing our New Yorkers who should have a safe environment to live their lives here as pedestrians and citizens, etc. I think that would have been a more effective strategy to kind of balance the, obviously there's a demand from the public to change the way that we police in this country. But there's also a reality, like you said, Manny, that if you went full fucking, guns blazing, defund the police, close Rikers, all the shit, you're probably not going to win the race.
Right. And that's kind of why Diane wasn't that serious of a candidate in the first place. She was clearly just trying to get the New York City elite liberal leftist vote without trying to even, craft a broad populist message. But sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're absolutely right on that. Yeah, it's very frustrating, right? Because again, some of the things that you like about Andrew Yang is his ability to kind of identify trends in the marketplace, trends in the workplace, seeing, the way he describes automation and where it's going. And I think him leaning so opposite to that, and he caught himself trying to run to the right of Eric Adams or outflank Eric Adams and just try to be this weird conundrum that he was in, where he's like, he has some liberal or some progressive sensibilities, but he's still kind of running center left in a lot of ways, center right to his other candidates or his other competitors. It was just so weird, and I think that he kind of fell into the same trap that a lot of politicians fall into, right? Where they get into those meetings with these so-called experts, right? These consultants, and they say, well, you're running for New York City mayor, you got to appeal to the liberal elite, you got to appeal to, instead of appealing to Flatbush Avenue, you got to appeal to Times Square, and it was just a recipe for disaster.
I mean, he ran his campaign out of Hell's Kitchen, right? How much is a fucking apartment in Hell's Kitchen? You know what I mean?
An apartment that neither three of us can afford.
Absolutely. All three of us could not move into that fucking apartment in Hell's Kitchen. You know what I mean?
No, no, absolutely not, man. Absolutely not. No, it's extremely frustrating because I do think Andrew Yang means well. I really do. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't look at the guy and it's like, oh, he's a piece of shit. No, I think he actually does mean well. I think he does want to do some good things. But again, communication is everything, and how you shine the light on the things that you want to do is very important. And I think a lot of times also it's frustrating because I think a lot of these politicians overthink this, right? Yeah. They overthink politics in a way, where it's like, oh, I've got to appeal. Well, when you try to play that game where you try to appeal to everybody, you end up appealing to nobody.
Yeah, 100%. First of all, I want to say thanks for that super chat, Marcus. Huge fan of Pink Floyd's Animals. Probably one of my favorite of their albums.
They also did a legendary tour where they had a blow up animal that went over the whole crowd. You can watch the live show of that. It's dope. But anyway, thanks for that super.
Anyway, thanks so much. I did want to ask you, Manny, too, since you are from New York and have a little bit more of a pulse on the town than we do. What in your opinion was the validity of all of these attacks on Yang for not being a real New Yorker? It seemed like he hadn't voted in a municipal election in 25 years in the city. It seemed like they were very legitimate reasons to kind of question his status as a real New Yorker or not. Also, the fact that he said Times Square is his favorite subway station was totally embarrassing. And even as someone who's not a New Yorker, I understand why that's, a red flag for someone that is. That's no New Yorker's favorite spot in the city. In fact, it's usually their least favorite from what I know. But did you think that was a legitimate attack? And do you think that might have cost him this election too, as people started to slowly realize that this guy's kind of a phony, he's kind of an out-of-towner, kind of an elitist?
Yeah, I absolutely. Well, yes, I do think that there was some validity to that. I think in the beginning it was a little bit of nitpicking, right? Because I think it started out as a little bit of nitpicking in the sense that, all the coverage around him was so glowing, right? Andrew Yang, he's so smart, he's this, he's brilliant, he's that. So I think that initially people started well, he doesn't know what a quarter water is, or he doesn't know this, or he doesn't know that. So it began as a little bit of nitpicking, but then he engulfed himself into this and became this caricature of himself, and he did start playing into what we all hate. Nobody listen, as a New Yorker, nobody hates a fake New Yorker more than New Yorkers, right? Everybody, every New Yorker to a man hates someone that claims they're from New York and they can't tell you what block this thing is on, or can't tell the difference between a bodega and a freaking gas station, or just stupid things, right? Stupid things that he got himself into, stupid controversies. And then on top of that, right, He has those things, and then he has the Israel comments, and then he has the homelessness comments, and all the things that all the controversies, all the silly controversies, honestly, that he got himself into. So you take all of that into the mix, it just became a bad recipe, man. But I do think there is some validity to authenticity. I mean, absolutely. And if your constituents, the people that you're trying to attract votes from, you know, the working class of New York, which is important, if they just feel like you're a carpetbagger and you're a phony, they're not going to respond to you. They're not going to respond to you. They just felt like this guy was a plant. Like, this is a guy that was selected in a factory. It was like, here, you go appeal to these people and, you know, say some things that they might understand. But then it's like, when you really try to challenge them and try to challenge his authenticity, it's like, this guy doesn't have it.
Yeah,
I mean, like, he's not a New Yorker.
Would you have been shocked if, like, I wouldn't have been shocked, and I feel like a lot of people would have been. It's like 2 years ago, Andrew Yang is like, oh, I have a home in Los Angeles. I'm running for mayor of Los Angeles. Like, you know what I mean? He could have been like, oh, well, he does have a home in Los Angeles, and he has had that address for 8 years, but you know, it's like he could have been from anywhere. He never really like engaged as an I'm a New Yorker candidate. That was never part of his sales pitch on the road. He's always talking about riding in Iowa with semi trucks. So it's just a really hard pivot to be like, I've been spending the last like 4 years relentlessly on the streets of the people with Iowa farm country. And now it's like, oh, I also know what's best for the people of New York, who I don't know anything the fuck about, apparently.
Right. And he would have been better off. He honestly would have been better off saying, look, I'm not a native New Yorker, or I'm not a New Yorker the way you are a New Yorker, or the way you are a New Yorker. But I've lived in this city long enough to know that this city has real problems, and we need to fix these things. We need to fix the homelessness crisis in this country, in this city. We need to fix the wealth gap in this city. You know, the fact that Manhattan is an island full of billionaires, and then we have every other borough literally engulfed in poverty. That's what we need to fix. So don't focus on whether I was born in Kansas or where I was born in Queens. You know, this is what we need. These are the real issues that we need to address. And he could have leaned on that, and no one would have batted an eye. Of course, you would have had idiots out there, people out there that were trying to hit him for his authenticity. But I think if he would have started his campaign like that, I think he'd be the mayor right now. And instead, he just, again, caught himself in this weird mix of like fake progressiveness /
trying to please everyone.
It's just weird.
Trying to please everyone and not pleasing anyone as a result.
Exactly.
Shout out to that LP for mayor comment. I liked that. But anyway, yeah, we've seen a lot of people in the comment section talk about the upset mayoral race in Buffalo the other night. Manny, did you hear about that? Did you have any thoughts about that? Gavin brought that to my attention this morning, which was dope.
I heard about it. I just haven't had a chance to follow it along. So yeah, I'm actually interested to see what you guys think about it. I heard about it, and it was actually really dope.
Yeah, this is super cool. Like I mentioned earlier, some actual good news coming out of New York for the left. But a socialist candidate in Buffalo, New York, has defeated the city's 4-term mayor in a major upset in Tuesday's Democratic primary. India B. Walton beat Mayor Byron Brown by 52% to 45%. The Associated Press has called the race. And if Walton wins the general election in November, she'll actually become the first socialist mayor of a large American city since 1960, when Frank Zilder left office in Milwaukee. And obviously, Buffalo is pretty likely to elect her in November. They haven't had a Republican mayor since 1965. So basically, she is the new mayor of Buffalo, a genuine dyed-in-the-wool socialist. I'm really excited to see what she's able to get done in this position. You know, it is interesting. We haven't had a socialist in control of a large city in a while. It'll be really interesting to see if she's able to actually make things happen. I'm really hoping so.
Yeah, it's almost like it kind of reminds me of what happened in St. Louis, right? I don't know if their mayor identifies as a socialist, like a dyed in the wool like this woman does, but it's kind of like we're starting to see the walls break a little bit, right? We've had a lot of energy put into congressional candidates, national politics, and that started to change a lot of hearts and minds. And now when you put people in at a local level, we're starting to see that it's possible to punch through. Buffalo is not, you know, LA, Austin, Minneapolis, but it is also a very large major city. This is a step in the right direction. This is very huge for the left movement, because if she is able to accomplish things, it will just continue to illustrate and make the point that we've all been saying. It's like, you can actually use the government as a tool to help people. We can reallocate your tax dollars in a way that will create a meaningful difference in your city and your community, right? You know, Kansas City, you know, Gavin and I were just talking, is a place that's you know, your mayor is basically worthless, right? It is a horrible ass town to have a mayor. They don't control the police. They don't control fucking jack shit here. All you can do is, you know, fucking point your finger at it and be pissed off at QL because he's, you know, simping for the police again. But hopefully Buffalo, and obviously I'm not super familiar with the politics of Buffalo, but I'm hoping that this is a place where she can introduce some policies, change the way that the city treats, you know, the homeless population, change the way that they, fund the police, perhaps. There's a lot of potential that can be done in some cities, and I'm really hoping that Buffalo is able to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, Zach. Yeah, it's a big thing. Shout out to her. First of all, being 39, a woman, and then black, and then of course being a socialist. Yeah, shout out to her. And Buffalo is one of those cities. It's a Rust Belt city. It's a city that it's a perfect encapsulation of all of the issues that have affected a lot of major cities across this country for the last 30, 40 years, right? White flight, you know, poverty, NAFTA, you know, the loss of jobs, you know, crime, you know. So these are all issues that have affected a lot of cities similar to Buffalo, and it's good that I think a lot of people are starting to kind of wake up to the lies of the Democratic and the Republican parties of like, oh, this is our way of fixing it. It's like, no, we need something new. We need something else. The traditional way of doing things is what we've been doing for the last 30, 40 years have led us to this, have led us to Buffalo being a shell of what it used to be, has led us to towns in the Midwest being a shell of what they used to be. So why not try a socialist? Why not try somebody who's young, you know, a millennial, black woman? Like, let's try somebody new. Let's see. I mean, you can't do any worse.
Yeah, I'm sad to say that I wasn't really paying attention to this race much until I heard this news. I really wish I had been paying attention more and even invited India on our program, because I would have loved to talk about her vision and her campaign. But obviously, now that she's won, she's not going to come on a show like this. Let's be honest.
Hey, you never know, man. You never know.
We know. But the point that I was making is that I really am going to be looking back now and studying exactly how she ran her campaign, because we were just talking about how in New York, the left, or in New York City, the left totally failed. Dianne Morales ran a pretty pathetic campaign, honestly, that was never really centered on a broad populist message that could actually result in a victory. And obviously Andrew Yang immediately abandoned any progressive values he ever claimed to have at the drop of a hat. However, Buffalo is, I'm guessing, even less, like, has less self-identifying progressive voters, yet they went for straight up socialist now over a 4-term incumbent established mayor. So I am fascinated to know what India Walton did to, you know, amass this support, amass this populist coalition capable of taking power from such a established figure in the political community. I would really be interested to see how she crafted her message, you know, exactly what policies she ran on, exactly how she talked to voters about these policies, because that's no small feat, you know, taking out an incumbent like that with a decent margin of victory. That's an impressive move and something that we really need to be paying attention to and studying as leftists that are trying to get similar work done in other parts of the country, including areas that aren't, you know, super thought of as blue or super progressive.
No, it's
absolutely.
It's actually not that. I mean, I've only been in Buffalo one time, right? But when I was there driving around, it did not strike me as a progressive stronghold at all. Quite the opposite. It reminded me a little bit of driving around Johnson County, very suburban. It was cold as shit when I was there. Either way, it had a very like Northeast vibe. People cared about hockey a lot more. There's a lot more big churches and shit. You know, and so this just proves that like a really solid message can pierce through any kind of geography, right? You know, it's the same kind of thing that when like Marquita Bradshaw won the Democratic primary in Tennessee, and of course, you know, she had a huge uphill battle in the general and she didn't win, but the fact that she was able to get through on that message in a place like Tennessee, you know, again, as a black woman with
I was going to say, and she, even though she didn't win, she got just as many votes as Amy McGrath, who was funded to the tune of fucking millions of dollars.
Millions and millions of dollars. Jeez, yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that you know, everything that you said about soon to be Mayor Walton is incredible, man. It's honestly an honest story, and I'm with you. I'm dying to see all the elements that went into running her campaign, and I would assume a campaign that wasn't heavily funded and didn't have a lot of the support of the New York Democratic, you know, the New York State Democratic Party. So this was really an insurgent candidacy, really a grassroots movement, I would imagine. Yeah. It's an incredible story, man, and it's something that definitely needs to be highlighted. So anybody that lives in Buffalo that's tuning in or whatever that has some insight on that, let us know. Yeah, it's a really dope story.
100%. Also, I want to
shout out to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was probably going to say the same thing. I was going to say shout out to Roger. Nick from Fred Hampton Left is a friend of the show. And yeah, stay tuned for announcement in that regard. We're about to be doing in-studio interviews. So you might be seeing something of that ilk sooner than you thought. But yeah, thanks for the super chat, man.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, obviously we're big fans of the guys at Fred Hampton Leftists. We've had RJ and JB on our show, and we'll continue to collaborate with those guys as our schedules mesh. But awesome. Also, thanks for the super chats. Yeah, I guess, did you guys want to talk about that Steven Crowder, Sam Seder shit?
Yes. I don't know if you're familiar, Manny, but the internet has been abuzz recently, at least in our current corners of the internet. Probably your average person doesn't know what the fuck this is having to do with.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, we're not exactly necessarily huge fans of Sam Seder over here at the Vanguard. If you've watched our content for a while, we have a myriad of strategic differences, and we've called him out probably just as much as any other leftist. And to
be fair, Sam Seder's no fan of the Vanguard.
What was that?
I said I don't think Sam Seder's much of a fan of the Vanguard. To be fair,
I'm sure he's not. But
I'm sure he's calling you guys crazies right now.
Yeah, we're the dumb left.
Crazies, right?
Yeah, the dumb left. The unofficial name of our podcast. But speaking of Sam Seder, what I was going to say is, regardless of how we feel about the man, if you put just about any competent thinking leftist or someone that is generally on the left side of the political spectrum next to an absolute fuckboy right-wing degenerate like Steven Crowder, they're going to look a lot better as a result. You know what I'm saying? Comparatively, so we all know who wins that fight. And while that fight didn't necessarily actually materialize, we still got a taste of an interaction here that was just downright hilarious on the H3 podcast, where essentially, Steven Crowder was forced to confront Sam Seder, who he has been dodging a debate with for some time now, earning him the moniker Cold Feet Crowder. So let's just take a look at this insanity, a few minutes of this clash that went down live on air the other day. This was absolutely crazy. And then we can react to it and discuss a little bit. But yeah, we can just take a look at this.
Same can be said for me. Ethan Klein from H3. Ethan, thanks, man, for making the time.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say, I know you called me, you said that I would be a layup.
I think I used something like that.
And I think you're right, because I don't think I'm a very good debater. I think you know that. So I didn't want to make it too easy for you.
Oh, okay.
So I've prepared.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what we were going to talk about is the initial quote that happened. I think he's looking off there. The initial quote that kind of was turned into a little bit of a meme, which wasn't intentional, and was you saying you don't even have to think about it regarding the CDC. And I disagree with that. I think people should think about it. I believe, and we talked about this through playful ribbing, in an aggregation of medical authorities and scientific voices to make an informed and rational decision. So where do you think that I'm wrong on that?
Stephen, do you know that the Spartans are like practice man love with children?
Oh, geez. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. What did I tell you? He was going to do anything he could to avoid. Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Seder. What a fucking nightmare. I had no idea this was going to happen. I thought Ethan was a stand-up guy. This is where we are. Yeah, I told Dave, remember I told you? I said I guarantee you he's going to do anything he can to avoid the debate.
Well, I just think he believes that he should debate you.
No, he doesn't. He just takes advantage of women with, mental health issues.
Steven,
Ethan Klein doesn't stand up and do his own fighting.
I gotta say,
it's just hilarious. Let's bring on the FM.
You would do anything to avoid talking to me. I think the point that you made at the beginning of
Joe
this
Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan and Ben Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson and Noam Chomsky and Sam Harris. Everyone's been avoiding.
And not just attempting to get your audience by jumping in.
Well, I debated with Charlie Kirk. Stephen, I mean, it's about issues. Let's talk about those issues.
That's what you're doing here.
Valid points.
You're so clever. I had no idea that you were taking your show off early last time, coming in today with your pig pen peanuts eyes.
I wish every.
You take those off with the velveteen buttons.
We must have been
Black
very worried
eyes,
about
aren't
this,
they? Like
Stephen. I don't know why.
No
it would
one's
be
worried
Oh, come
about
on,
it.
so
Sam. I didn't want to
Well,
do
let's have the
Sam,
debate.
come
If
on.
no
Just
one's
I'll tell you
worried,
what. I
let's
have a
do
general.
this.
I have a general.
This is a
rule.
great opportunity.
I don't start a
to-
debate based with people on a lie. And how
Or
about you get
sabotaging?
How about you get
Stephen,
to a
show
30th
yourself,
of the
you
audience
coward.
share?
Stephen, show yourself.
third-
Don't show your co-host.
Ethan, you should
Stephen,
show yourself.
excuse-
Ethan, how can you respect yourself as a man, brother?
Steven,
so
Steven,
strongly
you
that
are
you're
such
not
a
willing
coward.
to
Stop
debate.
showing your little leprechaun
you
co-host who
would
comes
welcome
out
Right.
dressed
Hey,
like
Ethan,
your
Ethan,
sidekick.
Come on, Ethan. Why do you have to bring on a
Show
guy who has
Steven.
a 30th of the
I'm really
viewership?
Why
of
are
the
you-
show?
Saddest thing I've ever heard. So you have a
Just
guy
show
with
Steven.
less viewers to come on to debate him because you can't.
Well, obviously, if I'm a
Apparently he had to think
obviously
about
I'm
it,
a
bro.
if I'm a layup
Yeah,
and
he
not a
didn't think
debater.
about it.
Well, look,
Yeah,
you're the
I
one
mean,
who
You're
called. You're the one who got started.
You're the one that got angry about
Show
it.
Steven. Don't be
Hold on
such a
second. All
coward.
right, hold on a second. Let me hear what Pigpen has to say here really quick.
Fair enough.
Show
But
Steven.
Ethan, look, I don't. Hold on a second, Ethan. This is because initially
Thank
I came
you.
on here to talk with Ethan. Ethan, come on, man. Look, the same reason that I haven't ever had a conversation with Sam Seder is the same reason that Joe Rogan, Sam Harris, Brett Weinstein, Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro don't own anything. It's based on a lie, Ethan. Just
What's
like
the
you
lie?
claiming my Ethan.
What's the
You
lie?
claiming my
What's the
booker
lie,
reached
Stephen?
out to you, Ethan, when you know
Stephen,
that's
what's the
not
lie?
true. There's no
What's
one
the
ducking
lie?
you,
Why
Sam.
are you
I've
so
never
afraid.
Sam,
Yeah,
Sam,
listen,
Sam,
I
Sam,
think
Sam,
you're a
Sam.
smart
I can
guy.
call out Mike
I don't
Tyson.
understand why
It doesn't mean that I'm
you
ducking
are so
him.
worried about this.
Why do you
I
feel that?
honestly
Why do you
don't.
feel that anyone, Sam? Why do you feel that anyone owes you airtime when you have a 40th of the audience and you've been doing the
I
show?
don't think anybody
for 10
owes me
times as longer?
airtime. I think that Ethan has just given it to me. I didn't
Right.
ask him for it, and
Right.
so
No, you've been begging
the
for
real
it for a long
question
time
is,
with everyone
Stephen,
bigger than
why
yourself.
Are you so
Yeah, he found
worried
you
about
can't build an
engaging with me?
audience, and so what
Why
happens is
are
he
you
uploads
so
15
worried about-
times more,
Do you think
has
your
less than a
audience
50th of the
says-
audience.
Well, that's
Do
why
you
he
think
wants to
that your
debate you, is so he
audience-
can build his.
Sam,
Do you
Sam,
think
come on.
your audience
Yeah,
cares
yeah.
that I only have 1 million subscribers and you have what, 6 or 7 million
I think.
subscribers?
Let me answer. Can I
don't
answer your
think
question?
they
Can I
do.
answer your question? Can I answer your question? Do you want me to answer your question? My audience would say Sam who? Just like Joe Rogan's audience and Ben
Well, now
Shapiro's
they
and
all
Dave
know
Rubin.
who I am.
Now they
You've
all know
just
who you
introduced
are
me.
because you had to
Your
shoehorn
audience
yourself into
watches
another coward show.
College
another
students,
show.
every day that you do that,
Why are
change
we-
my
Hold on a
mind.
second. Hold on
they
a second.
don't know who those college
This is another
students
lie.
are.
This is another lie.
What possible
Let
difference
me
would it be?
clarify, Sam. Let me clarify, Sam. The change my mind. Everyone knows on the show, right?
Yes.
We've had
How did
professors
you know
on the.
I ended
This
my
is what-
show
okay, he's not
early
gonna talk.
last week, Stephen? If your audience
Because
doesn't even
you're
know
an
me,
idiot,
how
and
did you
half of
know
your
that?
staff
Do
doesn't
you watch
like
my
you.
show?
Because I'm a diehard fan.
Yes, it's because he's a diehard
Well,
fan.
if you're a
I've heard of
diehard
you,
fan,
but I just
why-
met you.
why not
Congratulations,
have me
Sam Seder's fan.
and Stephen
I'm just
have
a
a
huge
conversation?
fan.
I will
like-
talk
right now,
about
every
the
time I
issues
try and
that
talk,
you
you're
want to talk
interrupting,
about,
Sam.
Stephen.
any-
Right now, I'm
Anytime
trying to talk with you. You're interrupting, Sam.
bombarded the show.
Okay,
You
go ahead.
bombarded my show under a false pretense. You claim
Bombarded?
just like you claim that I ducked a debate with you under a false pretense. Have I ever?
That is what the Politicon people told me. I
Oh,
played
is that what they
the
told you?
audio
Well,
of
so
it.
you're just lazy
Yeah.
with your research?
And if big tech is,
You continue with the lie. You need to research and say, did Stephen ever accept?
They said you were.
Let me
booked.
explain to you. Let me explain
They
to you.
said
Let me
you were
explain.
booked,
Hey,
and that you
whoa,
dropped
Sam,
out and you literally had
Sam,
cold
sweetheart.
feet.
Sam, fake stand-up comic who we can't find any footage about online. Let
I'm
me
not
finish.
a stand-up comic.
Oh, you're not? Okay, that makes sense because everything that I've seen is incredibly unfunny and unentertaining,
Well,
which may
I'm
explain
not
the
a
audience.
stand-up comic.
Irony alert, Stephen.
Comedian.
How much have you watched of my stuff,
The
Stephen, that
irony
you
of-
think
Sam,
that your
can I
audience
answer your
wouldn't
question?
appreciate
Sam,
our discussing
Sam,
things?
Samuel, can I answer your question?
Yes.
So you have gone on, you've done the same thing with other comments. Everyone has a bigger audience than you because you said, I want to speak with Steven Crowder. You believe that at some point there was some acceptance? When have I ever done a Politicon? Ever?
I
When
don't
have
know.
as a matter of
I
fact, in the
haven't
last
followed your
decade,
career like you seem to have followed mine, Stephen.
last decade, I haven't done a single political conference.
How
I
can
hosted
you
CPAC
say-
for 4 years and stopped because they suck.
How can
They
you
don't
say-
pay
Okay.
and they're full of losers.
What about Gavin
and you've been
McInnes's
clamoring
show?
for it, and
Gavin
it's a
told
lie.
me that you dropped out of doing
How
his
can you
show
say
because
that
This
you-
is
I
just
was going
hearsay
to
and
go-
gossip.
But how can
I
he
have
say
I've never
he'll
met more of a
follow your
woman.
career when he wants to?
It's we need more of this kind of discourse in our politics. politics, guys.
This is so ridiculous.
This is such a productive conversation. You didn't
very productive. I learned so much. I learned so much from this little exchange between these two gentlemen. Oh God.
It's kind of like, I guess I will give Sam Seder credit for doing this, but this is like, there was nothing productive that came from this. You know what I mean? It was like, this was completely just like, I mean, this is like Crossfire style politics. You know what I mean? Where it's like just evolves into.
But in Sam Cedar's defense, though, I think everybody knows that there's nothing productive about going on a show and debating Crowder. Like, there's no substantive argument to be had.
If he destroyed him, it'd be productive.
Well, yes, obviously, but he knows what's up. He knows that he's not built like that. He knows that he's not going to have a debate with Sam Cedar and actually going to come out on top or have any benefits in him whatsoever. That's why he had nothing to say, because that was your moment. As much shit as Crowder talks, you would think that was the perfect moment there for him to dunk on, quote unquote leftists, and he had nothing to say. So then he flips the conversation to, oh, I've got all my audience, my 8 million audience. Like, who cares? Who cares? This is a debate. Who cares how many people watch you compared to Sam Cedar or somebody else? Like, it's stupid.
Especially since he made his name literally debating randos, anonymous college kids on a campus. Now you're going to turn around and say 1 million subscribers is too small for me. And again, we're not even fans of Sam Cedar here at the Vanguard. Like I said, we've probably called him out for some of his dumb opinions more than any other content creator. But come on, I mean, have a conversation with the guy. What are you like? What are you afraid of?
That's the one thing where
he's a bully. He's a fucking bully. That's what he is. He's a bully. He prays. Well, that too. That goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're afraid to go up against a formidable debate opponent, not that Sam Cedar's the most formidable debate opponent that I would choose as like our, fucking choose your fighter for the left.
Brianna Joy Gray exposed that.
Yeah, exactly. But what I will say is that, it is a very low bar to be able to debate a guy like Steven Crowder, right? Like his talking points all fall apart. I mean, it's just all of that standard right-wing horse shit. So it's almost like Sam Cedar's been doing this for so long. If you've debated one, right-wing nut job, you've debated 100. It's kind of the same formula every single time, which is why, like, if Steven Crowder wasn't afraid, like, it could have been, I guess, interesting to tune in. But it was so obvious that he was completely unwilling to engage, and he had to come up with a million reasons why he was like being principled about not talking to the guy. I mean, I think it definitely made him come off worse out of the exchange than Sam Cedar. Because he was definitely just trying to make Sam Cedar look at like desperate and like he was groveling for views and all that kind of shit. And it's like, I mean, you're literally call yourself like a debate bro, right? Like I'm a blank, changed my mind. It's like, all right, well, somebody's here to try and change your mind. You can't try and build your reputation on that and then like, puff up and be like, I'm not going to participate.
It's the debate bro mentality backfiring on the right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that just tells you that they've always been full of shit, and they have all those debate bro folks are just full of shit. They're phonies. They have nothing to debate about. I mean, every right wing nut like the types like Steven Crowder are all the same. They know they can't win a substantive debate, so they change the conversation to stats or identity politics that'll score them cheap points because they have no substantive. Substantive debates to have. They have nothing to offer, and everybody knows that they're bullshit. Everybody with a brain, anyway, I should say, knows that these people are phonies. They have nothing to offer. They have nothing substantive to offer.
Yeah, it just, to me, it reads like a prank almost, right? Like that's all it was. It was kind of a prank.
Exactly. It was like a prank call. That's exactly
like it wasn't. Yeah, that's how I look at it. It was funny, but yeah, it was really just a prank. And also, it was funny that's one of the first times I've actually watched H3, but they're a ginormous podcast. I just completely slipped my purview. The only other time I'd heard them mentioned was when we were reacting to a Kyle clip, but the guy seems interesting.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool guy. And here he actually just tweeted this out. Now that Steven Crowder knows who Sam Cedar is, let's have that debate. We want it. Steven's fans want it. It's time to do this. Steven Crowder versus Sam Cedar. Let's make it happen for the people. And yeah, come on, man. I mean, honestly, it would probably be the best move for Steven Crowder at this point because he's just taken such a fucking beating online for this, for, essentially backing out of this debate once it literally was sanctioned and happening in front of him. He still rage quit, which we didn't get to, but later in that clip.
I disagree with you, Gavin. I don't think it's the best move for him because he knows he's not winning it. All that debate is going to do is hurt Steven Crowder even more. So he made the right play, even though he comes off looking terrible and he gets exposed, but he knows he's not going to win that debate.
Do you not think that his conservative audience will be at all like cringe at that?
No, because his audience are folks that already agree with everything he says anyway, and they're not going to change their mind once. Like Sam Cedar could literally take, every talking point that every progressive has ever laid out that has been proven to be fact and just spewed it back to back to back in a segment with Steven Crowder, and none of them will react. It'll be like, it'll be fake news, or it'll be, you know, liberal agenda or whatever. Like, you guys know the nonsense. Steven Crowder's not winning that debate, and he knows that, and he's going to lose the debate, and he's going to lose the public opinion on the debate. So the best thing he can do is punk out and just make it about stats, and you know, flip it and make it that Sam Seder is trying to glom onto his success or glom onto his audience, which we disagree. So I actually disagree with you on that. I think he gains nothing by doing that debate.
I just think
one of the so bad.
Yeah, and I do want to address one of the super chats because I actually disagree with this pretty seriously. I don't think Seder is more of our enemy than Crowder. Sam Seder literally wants everybody to have Medicare for all. He wants to, like, yeah, we agree with strategy a lot. But if I left Steven Crowder organize our government, we're gonna have literal fascism. We're gonna have cops busting people's heads in the street. If I let Sam Seder run our government, we're going to have a lot of, you know, probably neoliberal stasis, but that's still objectively better. I understand the point that you're making, that like he is a hurdle that we have to overcome as a left, but I think it's misleading to understand that it's like politics is a spectrum, right? And Sam Seder is like right here if we are right here, right? Sorry, everything's backwards, so I'm fucking up my left and right. You know, but then Steven Crowder's all the way over here. You know what I mean? And so it's like, let's not make the mistake of thinking somebody over here is more of our enemy than somebody over here.
Yeah,
so, but anyway,
it's just like a bland, like, social democrat. It's whatever. And what were you saying, that meaning?
No, I was just going to say, like, and I say this every time I come on, and I have to repeat it. Like, we have to get away from this on the left, right? And I'm not saying you guys are doing it, but obviously the person that left the super chat is making this. Like, look, we could disagree on strategy and on talking points. Like, I don't doubt Sam Seder's a progressive. I don't doubt that he wants some of the things that I want. He just has a different way of going about it. I disagree with him wholeheartedly on a lot of different things, but I don't see him as an enemy. I don't see him as, you know, he might be a hurdle, but I don't see him as an enemy per se. Like, just because I don't agree with your strategy doesn't make you, you know, the same or worse than the people that are obviously our enemies. Right. And it's like, we need to get away from that, because we do need some sort of allyship in this movement. Like, we do need some sort of, you know, so maybe the folks that are 3 steps behind us, we might need to just hold their hands and walk along through. Like, I just think this idea that, like, oh, in a debate with Steven Crowder and Sam Seder somehow is worse.
Well, no,
like,
I actually totally agree with you. And it was actually that exact dynamic that used to make the Majority Report interesting, to me at least, when Michael Brooks was still alive, rest in peace, you know, because he was a little bit further to Sam's left. But that's not to say, you know, Sam Seder is a total fucking moron when it comes to everything. No, they still had good conversations. They still had reasonable disagreements and butted heads. And that's what made it interesting. To me nowadays, what makes it a lot less interesting is that there isn't that robust, intelligent left presence on there to push back against some of his bullshit and hold him to account where he needs to be. And now it just kind of seems like an echo chamber with some other hosts on there that I'm not a huge fan of either.
Wait, honestly, Emma Bigland hasn't inspired you to move more towards the
Vanguard,
left?
though. She's our biggest fan.
Oh, is she?
And just to address this super chat as well, thanks for the $5. I don't really think the left is if you talk to your, like, you know, DSA or whatever, I don't think they give a shit about this. This is literally just YouTube debate drama. I would think that's a little bit
just like a joke. Like, that's how
it was more of a bully finally getting punched in the mouth, and it was shown to live YouTube to everybody to see. It's like, I didn't take anything of it. I didn't take it as the right lost or the left lost. It was just Steven Crowder finally got exposed for being the phony that he is, and it was hilarious.
No, that's pretty much the end of the story. But I did think it was very entertaining.
Yes, whatever, absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, I did want to move on to another story. Another person we respect a lot here at the Vanguard, Matt Taibbi, journalist, obviously. He got asked about this whole TYT versus Aaron Mate beef on a recent appearance on Primo Radical. Shout out to Primo for this pretty dope interview. I really enjoyed it. We're going to take a listen to the first couple minutes here. And then also a little bit later, I want to play another clip from this interview to react to as well. But I'd love to get your opinion, Manny, on this after we take a listen to what Matt Taibbi has to add.
Aaron Mate, I did want to ask, just because it's been such, you know, a big Twitter feud over the last couple of weeks. Have you been following the feud between him and Jimmy Dore and the Young Turks?
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of the life of Brian, you know, with the Judean People's Front and the People's Front of Judea. But anyway, go ahead.
So, I mean, I just kind of wanted you, I guess, to weigh in a little.
By the way, Life of Brian is the best Monty Python movie, so shout out to Matt Taibbi. But just wanted to say that.
But honestly, a lot of folks out there have kind of thought that the $20 million that Young Turks received back in 2017 has changed their worldview a lot, kind of in the context of this feud. A lot of old tweets and clips have emerged of Cenk Uygur being suspicious of the gas attacks and even defending Jimmy Dore when Jimmy Dore was attacked by CNN for being skeptical.
What they're referring to about the Syrian chemical attacks, Rand Paul went on television, said almost the same exact thing Jimmy did, which is don't just trust the Pentagon. Let's verify to see if that attack actually came from the sources that the Pentagon says that it came from. That's what any responsible citizen should do. By the way, that's what a journalist should do. But CNN, on the other hand, goes, the Pentagon said it, so it must be true. I took down the note from the spokesman from the Pentagon. That's why CNN needs to partner with people like PolitiFact to check facts for them, because they're not real journalists. If you were a real journalist, you would actually have your own organization to check facts, and you would have checked the fact about Jimmy Dore, which you didn't. Instead, you did false equivalency. It's another reason why this article is absolutely trash.
And seemingly right around the time that he received that money, everything changed, and now Cenk is, in a single tweet going after Aaron Mate, Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, and Glenn Greenwald. Jimmy Dore along with these 3 award-winning journalists. So, do you think that maybe money is a factor, or do you think it maybe just goes into this larger trend that we're seeing of progressive media kind of falling in line with imperialist talking points?
So I was in a movie about I.F. Stone called All Governments Lie, and so was Cenk. And there's an interesting, it's essentially about independent media and its role. And there's a scene in there where Cenk is talking about the early experiences of the Young Turks. They had, in 2008, they had gotten a lot of their audience from young, enthusiastic followers of Barack Obama. And when they transitioned to covering the Obama presidency, they were faced with kind of a financial conundrum, which was, well, if we start reporting negatively about Obama and about, for instance, his response to the 2008 crisis, we're going to lose audience. And this is the dilemma of anybody who is in independent journalism. If you follow your reporting, you will eventually be put into a position where you might have to choose between making money and saying what you actually think. And that is a very difficult place to be. Now, at the time, I think he made the right choice, and he did the reporting that I think was true about the Obama administration. They were critical of him. They took a hit, audience-wise. But it's tough to make that decision over and over and over and over again over a long period of time. And things can get complicated, particularly, when you're taking, abuse in a Twitter beef or whatever it is. But, I don't know what's gone on with the Young Turks. I disagree with them about a lot of things lately. I definitely disagreed with Cenk about the Russia story. But is that something that that he genuinely believes, genuinely feels, or sometimes because you're in a place commercially and you're reporting something that works for you financially, you might start to believe it over time, especially when you're getting lots of praise and feedback from your audience, and that they're telling you that this is what they want. That kind of stuff can be really difficult to sort out. So I'm trying not to be judgmental about it. I disagree with them about a lot of things lately. I think there was a significant portion of the media during the Trump years that fell into this pattern of, in opposition to Donald Trump, anything is justified, and we have to go the extra mile to make sure that we're on the right side. Whereas, for me, like a traditional journalist, I don't think in terms of sides. I think in terms of, what's true and what isn't. Other people think in a different way. Again, I try not to judge about that stuff too much, though.
That's a really measured.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a really measured response by Taibbi, right? He's not throwing bombs at TYT like I would have if I got answered that, or if I got asked that question. I think he has maybe a working relationship with Cenk in the past, and he's trying to be respectful. Also, Matt Taibbi is just kind of the guy that's going to be like, I'm going to follow the facts, and they did take this money. Can I say for sure that this is why they've changed their reporting? No. Do I seriously disagree with them? Yes. Are they falling victim to the same structures that all media companies that take money fall victim to? Yes. So just a very thoughtful, analysis by Matt Taibbi, who I would consider to be one of our premier media critics of the time, somebody that I certainly look up to for their commentary in that capacity, somebody who's really watched the media business, specifically the journalism business, evolve, change, and I think he always has really sharp commentary on it.
I will personally. I thought it was a overall, like you said, nuanced response. I do think that he could have gone a little bit harder, given the fact that they're literally resorting to like neo-McCarthyism, just calling their opponents Russian agents and stuff like that, which we'll get into a little bit later in this clip. But yeah, overall, you can tell he doesn't really want to get involved in this fight. He doesn't really, want to get involved in this beef needlessly. So I totally understand that impulse as well. But what was your opinion, Manny?
Yeah, I'm with you guys on Taibbi's response to it. I thought it was perfect. I agree. I think he could have went a little bit harder, but like Zach said, we don't know what the relationship is there between Cenk and Matt. Maybe and honestly, I don't even think it's even part of a relationship. I think it's just probably he just doesn't want to sully himself in this stupid back and forth nonsensical discussion where it's not going to be beneficial for anybody. I think TYT, man, has fallen into the same trap that a lot of media companies. I mean, I thought his answer that he said there at the end is absolutely 100% spot on. I think TYT has fallen into that same trap that a lot of media companies fall into, which is like, we have to be on the right side of Trump. We have to be. It's anti-Trump at all times, and when that happens is that you lose the ability to think constructively and critically about issues going on that cross-contaminate left, right, on all aspects, right? Like, so you lose this ability to actually disseminate information and disseminate it from the left or from the right or just from the truth perspective. And it's just like you're almost just flag waving now instead of actually trying to cover the news and trying to present a view.
It's just a virtue signaling mess. Yeah, and that's why
exactly what it is.
Fortunately, I do think that there's a change now. There is. I think it's a generational thing. If I'm being charitable, where people who are in an older generation are really, really convinced that you need institutional support in order to say what the fuck you think. And I just think that's patently absurd because we know that institutional support will always censor you like they always have all the time. And they say, yes, well, that's true. But without that, then he'll be like, he brought up the example of Obama and like the fact that TYT took a little bit of a hit after Obama. You know what also happens? Where you're always going to take a hit after a presidential election because the energy is here and now it's here. It's not that people are so fucking sycophantic and ideological that they can't listen to a commentator that disagrees with them. Okay. I've disagreed with people that are in our comment section like 30 times today on this fucking podcast. And I guarantee you most of them are still here because they're reasonable individuals. You know what I mean? People are like, you can have those kinds of conversations and it's not like, oh God, we're about to lose 1,000 subs because I disagreed with somebody about Sam Seder's strategy. No, like like people are nuanced. They trust you that you're shooting them the straight shit. And obviously there's some people that you're going to lose if you really piss them off. But I feel like that's why Matt Taibbi is giving TYT the benefit of the doubt, because like from the generation of journalism that he comes from, same kind of arguments that Ryan Grimm gives, like they just kind of still believe that you need that institutional support, even though Matt Taibbi has gone on his own. And I think illustrated just how well you can succeed as an independent reporter.
Yeah. 100%. You use the keyword. No, I was going to say, Zach, you use the key word there, nuance. We've lost all ability to have nuanced discussions, nuanced thinking, nuanced disagreements on critical issues in this country. And it's like, it's weird. And I think it's like Trump Stockholm syndrome or whatever it is. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just like this just weird thing where it's like, if you say anything, that might piss somebody off, then you're like the ultimate evil person. Or if you agree with one element of something that somebody said, then you're absolutely that. It's like we want to label people these things. Like, Aaron Mate now is a Russian spy apparently because he's calling bullshit to God, I'm having a brain cramp. But,
the Syria gas attack stories.
Syria gas attack stories, and it's like, no, maybe he just disagrees with your take on it, and
and also there's a lot of neo-McCarthyism, like that one, in that example. I'll back up a little bit because it was lying so that the United States could bomb the shit out of Syria, which is why I think it's a big deal, and I think it's why the United States media refuses to engage with it, because even Democracy Now! Kind of people, they fucked that up, and also, you know, the fact that they all cheerleaded when Trump bombed the Syria, the first act of his presidency or whatever, from all these like liberal news stations. But
well, Zach, you're wrong. The United States government would never lie about, you know, facts on the ground to further their own political agendas. The U.S. would never do that. Come on now, come on, guys.
Well, I did want to play another portion of this interview from a little bit later in, because, and again, with all the love to Matt Taibbi in the world, someone who I genuinely respect, he did give a little bit of a milquetoast answer there when confronted by the TYT situation. Let's take a look how he responds to someone that's come after him personally, not necessarily his colleagues, but himself personally. I thought this was pretty funny too.
You know, business-wise, that's a tough place to be, probably, for them.
And it seems as though the way that they try to fight against that, you know, whether it be establishment corporate media or in this case specifically with the Young Turks, is to try to make people to the left of them seem as though they're on the right. So we had Cenk saying that repeatedly about Jimmy Dore's secretly a conservative, and also, you know, trying to associate Glenn Greenwald and Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate with Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin, which again is something that the corporate media will do to anybody on the left, even to Bernie Sanders, suggesting that he's associated with Vladimir Putin. So I don't know, just what do you think about that line of attack at all? Because that just seems like a severe doublethink where anybody to the left of me is actually on the right.
Well, so I get that all the time, and it drives me crazy. It's dishonest. It's McCarthyism, frankly. I mean, without being too dramatic about it, this has been what's happened within kind of the blue state media for the last 5 years. You know, anything that goes against narrative in you know, on that side of the aisle now, in media terms, instantly evokes accusations of being you know, right wing or you know, an enabler of the right wing. I mean, right now there's a headline about me and Glenn Greenwald in Current Affairs where Nathan Robinson, who, if you held a knife to a child's throat and demanded it, couldn't write an article shorter than 8,500 words. But, you know, he's got this gigantic screed accusing Glenn and me of being tools of the right, even though, you know, there aren't any actual examples of, you know, us taking right-wing positions on anything. But the implication of these comments is that by being by taking a position that is not ours, you are aligning yourself with the evil forces of the right, and therefore you're to be attacked, you're to be shunned, you're to be kicked out of the club, and
to that I'll just say, at least you weren't accused of literally being a foreign paid Russian asset. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think he has been accused of that multiple times.
Well, yes, but not by Nathan Robinson.
Oh, right.
Yes, the point I was making. Cenk literally accused his colleagues Aaron Mate and Glenn Greenwald of being paid by the Russians. At least in Nathan's article, he didn't make such a baseless and outrageous and slanderous accusation. It was more of the substance of the points, yada yada yada. But I definitely understand where Matt's coming from there. I just feel like that's the proper response in general.
Oh, 100%. And also just a quick thing, because it's so true. And I love that if you held a knife to a small child's throat, he couldn't write an article. Dude, I've read some really good pieces by Nathan Robinson, and we've also disagreed on a bunch of shit, as you could watch our podcast and find out about. That's fucking hilarious, because the one thing that dude needs is a fucking editor. Like, oh my God, not everything is a fucking treatise. This dude will write like the longest. I have a fucking Current Affairs subscription. I support independent media. Okay. But Jesus Christ, that dude has some.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Some, I know. Well, anyway.
No, it's just again, it encapsulates this feeling that we're dealing with now in this country as a whole. It's just that, again, if you disagree with me, you are my enemy. You cannot have any nuanced thought. You cannot have any little bit of a challenge to my positioning. It's like, if you disagree with me, you are my enemy. That's it. That's it. It's over. It's done. And it's like, we can't. That's not healthy. That's not healthy for a republic. That's not healthy for a democracy. That's not healthy for real substantive change. It's like, it's just, again, it's tribalism.
The opposite of populism too, which we all call ourselves populist, but it's the exact opposite of populism. 100%.
Absolutely.
One thing I did want to, unless you, Gavin or Manny, if you guys had anything else that you wanted to say on
Manny, did
Matt
you just
Taibbi?
have any general opinions on the whole TYT, Aaron Mate, Glenn Greenwald, etc. beef that's been going on? I know it seems like that's what everyone's talking about, but I just did want to give you a chance to share your opinion on that if you had one.
TYT is full of shit. I mean, that's just my personal opinion on it. I mean, it's just it's so sad where TYT has fallen. Like, I mean, again, I think we talked about it the last time I was on the show. It's like TYT they were the OGs of this shit. Like, they were the ones that set the path, that set the template. And it's just so crazy to me how far they've fallen. And hey, I hope the checks cash and they're cleared and it's worth it to lose your values and your truth. And then now you've just basically become an arm of the Democratic Party, which is sad. And it's just, and we all know this. Everybody that watches this program knows that TYT is a shell of what it used to be. And this is just another example of that. I mean, listen, you could disagree with Aaron Mate, but to basically call him a Russian asset, a Russian agent, like, really? Like, seriously, this is what we've, and it's a form of disarmament. It's a form of not being able to have a substantial political debate with someone, and then just like, oh, okay, you're a Russian, you're a spy, you're an Assad supporter. It's the same thing they did with
Well, do you know what
Tulsi
it is? I think it really what it was is it was the fact that absolutely nothing came from Russiagate at all. And Aaron Mate had been on TYT multiple times making a case that was borne out as fact about Russia, that there was there were going to be no indictments, that there was going to be no direct evidence between the United States. The Mueller report was going to be empty, that the Steele dossier was hoax, like all that shit. They were all talking about that. And yet, after the last evidence ended, that's when you start hearing Aaron Mate is fucking foreign agent. Aaron Mate is this, blah, blah, blah. It's because they had nowhere to go anymore. And it's the same thing that happened at Democracy Now! It was like you did this like weird neoliberal thing that's the exact opposite of what your credibility says you would do. And now you have to like operate permanently running this like bullshit story. Like, people don't trust you after that.
Well, the other thing about this, and the thing that I think that we're not even getting to the root of is that being anti-Trump, being full on the train of Russiagate, made a lot of people a lot of money. Like, a lot of people cashed a lot of fat ass checks.
It's still the most popular videos that TYT does are all Trump related.
Exactly. So this is financially motivated, right? Like, all of this whole thing has always been financially motivated. These media companies know what they're doing. They knew that Trump was a cash cow, and they knew that they had to be on the right side of history on him, whatever that means, on everything that they covered on the guy, whether right or wrong or indifferent. Like, they knew that they had to take this approach because it was a money thing. It wasn't even about strategy or even just principle. It was about money.
Yeah, unfortunately though, because I totally agree, it was about money, but you'd think they'd be smart enough now that Russiagate is over and that it's been disproven and the Mueller report failed. You'd think that now they'd have the brains to turn around and say, hey, we fucked up, guys. Because then in someone like me, in my eyes, I might be a little bit more forgiving going forward to their coverage if I'm seeing, oh, okay, well, they were at least willing to accept where they were wrong, instead of doubling down and smearing their political opponents as literal Russian assets, which is just crazy. I mean, that's like a pretty crazy accusation to make about a fellow.
It's a gross accusation.
Yeah.
It's a gross accusation, but that's what tells you it's about money, right? When they're continuing to double it down, it's like, yo, it's hard when those $20 million checks are cashing. It's hard to go, oh, why the fuck would we go anywhere near the truth? We could keep spewing this babble, and we're still going to get the subs.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're the ones taking money over here. Aaron Mate is doing real journalism, actually breaking stories, actually doing hard-hitting investigations.
He's got boots on the ground. He's got boots on the ground.
TYT's talking about Whoopi Goldberg and Meghan McCain. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
One dude's on the ground in Syria actually doing real investigative reporting, and I guarantee you he doesn't have $20 million to do it. No. So, yeah. But speaking of millions and millions of dollars, while we had you here, Manny, I was really, really excited to get your take on the upcoming sporting event of the summer, Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3. Now,
yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, now I'm in my heart of hearts, I want to see Wilder win. Don't get me wrong. I want to see Wilder to win. You know, boxing is an international sport. You always cheer for the. You know, I'm not a jingoist. I'm not a nationalist, but I do cheer for the American. You know, I like Deontay Wilder. I think he's a stand-up dude as far as boxing is concerned. You know, there's no like. Public assaults. There's no, you know, like he's just a stand-up dude, loves his daughter, you know, fights for his family, all that kind of shit, right? But I don't think he has a fucking snowball's chance in hell against a third fight with Tyson Fury after how bad he looked in the last fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Well, I agree with everything you said about Deontay Wilder. I will disagree. I mean, I think just by sheer happenstance, he has to be better in the third fight, right? Like that second fight was
Tyson
just
Fury
so...
downloaded all of that information. He's got his timing down. All he has to do is avoid the one punch. Tyson Fury was boxing circles around him in that second fight.
That's exactly your point there. He was boxing circles around him. And I think that Tyson Fury proved to a lot of people, because before it used to be this thing where Tyson Fury is just a scrapper and a brawler in the ring. And it's like, no, I can actually box. Like this boxing shit, I'm actually good at. Like he just outboxed Deontay Wilder. He beat him every step of the way. He just made him look. He embarrassed him. I mean, let's be fair.
Why do you think they're even doing a third one then? If it was such a fucking
money, it was a huge success. That fight. It's a huge money. I mean, boxing is about events now more than anything else.
Well, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, if he's already been senselessly slaughtered, then it's like, is it?
Well,
like
the first fight was a close competitive.
Oh, I watched
fight.
that one. That was fucking crazy.
That was an amazing fight.
And I don't even care about boxing, but that was wild.
And then the second one was just such a beatdown. So of course, in boxing, you have to have.
Wasn't there a rematch clause though? Because technically the first fight was a draw. So then they went and had the second one, and then Deontay Wilder could still exercise the rematch clause from his defeat in the second one since they did a draw the first time. I'm pretty sure that's why Tyson Fury couldn't even brush him off and just go fight like Anthony Joshua or something. Because I know that's
you're absolutely right.
A lot of people would love to see, because in the UK that's going to be a huge fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's money in all of this, right? So yeah, that third Deontay Wilder fight, and honestly, if this fight does numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a fourth fight. Like I think,
matter of fact, I think that Deontay Wilder's gonna. I don't think he makes it to the 12th round in this one. I think he goes out again.
I guarantee you, if this is a 12-round fight, we will see a fourth one, no matter what the result is. I guarantee you, we'll see a fourth one. It just is, you know. And then of course you have the Anthony Joshua fight that, you know, seems like we're never gonna get, but eventually we'll get it. Hopefully when they're still in their primes, hopefully. But yeah, man, I just I haven't really had a chance to break it down just yet in my mind, but I do. Right now, my early favorite is Tyson Fury, because I think that Tyson's done his homework on Deontay. I do think Deontay will be better. He has to be. I mean, just sheer happenstance will tell you. And just
I mean, he looked like he got exhausted in the third round.
He looked. His conditioning looked off. He just looked out of it. He just looked like it just didn't look as normal, because I've seen Deontay Wilder fight.
Meanwhile, Tyson Fury's floating like a butterfly around the fucking.
Is it possible he was just having like a really shitty day? Because sometimes I just feel like that. Like sometimes I'll be on this podcast and I'm like,
that's what he said. He said he was exhausted from his costume. He said he wore the big ass armor.
Yeah, in the right mood to operate. You know, like my commentary will just be shittier one day than the next day. That's my job. I imagine the same thing happens if your job is boxing.
Listen, we all have bad days and we all have good days, man. And I'm sure that's probably an element of it. It's a human element, but that obviously is boring, right? Nobody wants to sit there and be like, "Oh, I had a bad day." No, I think that's obviously part of it. I also think that, you know, a lot of times with boxing, man, you go into that ring with a strategy, and if that shit doesn't work round one, you know, this isn't like playing a baseball game or a basketball game. Like, you're getting hit in the face.
Like Tyson, Deontay Wilder's not used to not knowing what to do, right? Because outside of any fight that he's had that wasn't with Tyson Fury, even the what was the fight that he had with the fucker that before that? I can't think of his name. He knocked him out. No, Andy Ruiz fought Anthony Joshua. He fought another guy.
Yeah, you're right.
He was a Cuban guy, I think. But either way, he knocked him out. I believe that was in between the first fight and the second fight, but maybe not. Maybe it was right before. Either way,
I know what I
mean was he's only lost to Tyson Fury. You know. Yeah. And so when you get in there and like you said, he normally has that like one punch ticket to victory, right? That's how he never, like, Deontay Wilder doesn't outbox people. He knocks them out. Like, you know, he was never going to win on the scorecards. Like, he has the great equalizer. And when that wasn't ever landing, nothing that he was throwing was landing. I think he probably did get fucking freaked out in there, like start panicking, right? You know, and that does exhaust you. So maybe he will have a better performance in the second or the third fight. I'm sorry, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to watch it.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Yeah, he has to, man. I mean, I would think Deontay's a smart enough fighter, I would think, and his trainers are all obviously smart. So I would think that he's going to have a better performance just by definition. But yeah, I just think it's a bad matchup, man, because I think Tyson Fury's proven that he can outbox Deontay Wilder, and he can get into a brawl with Deontay Wilder. Obviously, I think it's better for Tyson if he outboxes him than tries to get into a brawling match with Deontay Wilder. But I do think that I just think it's a bad matchup. I really do. And but I'm hoping for a great fight, and I think it will be an entertaining fight. I think it'll be closer to the first fight than it is the second one. That second one is just such an aberration.
I know, it was fucked up watching it. I felt bad. I was like, Jesus Christ, Deontay, you need to get your shit together. Also, you were right. It was Ortiz that Wilder fought right before he fought Tyson Fury. I
got the names. I got the. I heard.
You were right. You were right. I was wrong. But anyway, that was what I had for today. Gavin, was there anything else that you wanted to chat about before we got the fuck out of here?
Not really. Just want to say shout out to Zach and this name that I can't pronounce for the super chats. Really appreciate that. But yeah, I think that's about it. Manny, did you want to again let everyone know where they can find your work, where they can follow you on Twitter, where they can listen to your podcast, etc.?
Yeah, man. First, as always, thank you guys for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor, of course.
Anytime, man. We love having you.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I consider myself a part of the Vanguard family, so it's an honor. I appreciate it every time being invited on. Yeah, definitely, man. I say this every time I'm on, man. What you guys are doing is so inspiring and so dope. You know, two guys like me just talking leftist politics, man, and just taking it to where you guys have had interviews with like all these people that I look up to too. It's amazing what you guys are doing, man. I'm a big cheerleader for you guys, and just keep it going, man. I'm loving where the podcast and the YouTube channel is going. As far as me though, again, you guys can catch me on Any Given Sunday. New episodes every Sunday, like the name, most of the times. This week we had an episode actually just dropped today because of scheduling issues. But yeah, Any Given Sunday, sports and politics mix. Yeah, man, check it out. It's available on all platforms. And I also host a baseball podcast called I Love Baseball. Just like it sounds, I just have weekly guests on. We just talk about our love for baseball and just news items on the sport. And I've been on a little bit of a hiatus on that show, but it comes back this week with a new episode. So make sure you go follow that. Any Given Sunday is on Twitter at AGS Pod, and it's on Instagram at AGS Podcast. And then, of course, you guys can follow me on Twitter at DManuel Brown and Instagram DManuel Brown, Manny Brown on Facebook, Manny Bro 15 on Snapchat. I'm everywhere. So you guys want to get in touch with me?
Hey, man, Manny's got himself plugged into all the pipelines. Man, well, hey, we got to get you sometime. We're going to have a studio, and we got to get you down to Kansas City so we can do one of these live.
Hey, listen,
here in the future.
COVID has made me appreciate traveling. So I am more locked into traveling than I've ever been before. So you guys name the date and time, and I'll be there.
I thought you were going to say
COVID go to a Chiefs game with Manny, bro.
I thought you were going to say COVID has made me completely unwilling to go into anyone's house or studio. But I'm glad you said the other thing.
I used to be that way, and then COVID being secluded from everybody, it's like, yeah, nice. No, I'm down. Everywhere we want to go, I'm there.
Oh yeah, well, we'd love to kick it with you in general and talk politics on and off the record. You know, obviously we're not just having these conversations for our audience. This is what Zach and I talk about in our private lives as well. So yeah, that'd be great.
Rather degeneratively. Yeah. If you literally, if you followed me and Gavin around with the camera, it would literally just be the Vanguard, but like us talking shit as we did things. Yeah. But anyway,
hey, we need to make that happen. We need to have like a Vanguard reality show. We need to make that happen.
But anyway, man, take care. Yeah. And we'll get you back on here soon. Peace out.
Yeah. Everyone go check out Manny's stuff. Peace out, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.